Sounds of a distant, sorrowful wail. Miss Hee-Ho's. Have you ever heard that cry carried on the night wind? It's a sound that has haunted the Americas for centuries, a wail of eternal grief that chills the blood. Miss Hee-Ho's. Oh, my children. Legend says that if you hear this spine-tingling lament near a river, a lake, or even a humble canal after dark, it's a terrifying omen. It means she is near. And where she walks, misfortune or even death is sure to follow. This is the cursed tale of La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, Mexico's most infamous and feared ghost. So who is this spectral figure and what tragedy binds her to our world? The story begins with a woman named Maria, a beauty so radiant that she turned heads in her small village. She fell deeply in love with a wealthy nobleman, a dashing ranchero who was captivated by her charm. They married, and for a time their life was idyllic. They had 2 beautiful children, and Maria devoted herself to them completely. But happiness, as it often does in these tales, proved to be fleeting. Her husband, a man of the world, grew restless. He started spending more time away, carousing with other women and neglecting his family. Maria's heart filled with a toxic mix of sorrow and resentment. The final betrayal came when he returned to the village not for her, but with a new, younger bride, telling Maria he was leaving her and the children to start a new life. Blinded by a grief so profound it twisted into pure rage, Maria's mind snapped. She grabbed her 2 small children, dragged them to the nearby river, and in a fit of vengeful madness, she did the unthinkable. She pushed them into the churning water, watching as the current swept them away. It was only when the silence returned, broken only by the rushing river, that the full horror of her actions crashed down upon her. My children, what have I done? She screamed, running frantically along the riverbank, her hands outstretched as if she could pull them back from the depths. But it was too late. They were gone. Consumed by a guilt too heavy for any mortal soul to bear, she collapsed and died right there on the river's edge. But her story doesn't end there. Oh no, that would be too merciful. When she arrived at the gates of the afterlife, she was asked a simple, damning question: where are your children? Unable to answer, she was denied entry. She was cursed, condemned to wander the earth for all eternity, searching for the children she murdered. She became La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, forever trapped between the living and the dead, her punishment to search endlessly for what she can never recover. So, if you were to encounter her, what would you see? Witnesses from across generations and borders describe a terrifyingly consistent vision. She appears as a tall, slender figure, unnaturally pale, almost luminous in the moonlight. She is always dressed in a flowing white gown, a burial shroud that billows around her as if caught in an unseen wind. Her most striking feature, however, is her long, black hair, which often hangs like a dark veil, obscuring her face. Those who claim to have seen her face and survived speak of 2 possibilities, both equally horrifying. Some say her face is a featureless blank, a smooth canvas of despair. Others, the truly unfortunate ones, have looked into her eyes and seen nothing but 2 black, empty voids from which an endless stream of tears flows. Her presence is often accompanied by a sudden, unnatural drop in temperature, a cold that seeps into your very bones. The stories of encounters with La Llorona are countless, woven into the very fabric of folklore. The most common warning, passed from parent to child for hundreds of years, is to never go out alone at night, especially near water. Children who wander too close to the riverbank are told that La Llorona mistaking them for her own lost. Children in her grief-stricken state will snatch them up and drag them to a watery grave, desperate to present them to the heavens as a replacement. But it's not just children who are at risk. Drivers on lonely, dark roads that run alongside rivers have reported bone-chilling sightings. They see a woman in white standing by the side of the road, weeping. Concerned they might slow down or stop to help, only for her to lift her head and reveal her terrifying, tear-streaked face or her empty eye sockets before vanishing into thin air. Others claim she has appeared directly in their headlights, causing them to swerve and crash. Fishermen and late-night strollers speak of hearing her unmistakable cry echoing across the water, a sound that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, a warning to flee immediately. The sound gets fainter the closer she is, and louder the farther away she is, a cruel trick of the supernatural. The cultural impact of La Llorona is immense, especially in Mexico and the southwestern United States. She is more than just a ghost story. She is a cautionary tale, a boogeyman, and a cultural icon, all in one. For centuries, parents have used her story as a tool to ensure their children are home safe before dark. Be home before the sun sets, or La Llorona will get you, is a warning that has echoed through countless households. But her influence extends far beyond a simple parental warning. She is a fixture in art, music, literature, and film. Her tragic story is reenacted in plays and celebrated in a spooky way during festivals like Dia de los Muertos. In recent years, she has transcended her folkloric origins and entered global pop culture, stirring in major Hollywood horror films that have introduced her terrifying legend to a whole new audience worldwide. She represents the archetype of the grieving mother, the betrayed woman, and the terrifying monster, a complex figure of both pity and fear. She embodies a deep-seated cultural anxiety about loss, betrayal, and the consequences of unchecked emotion. Now, as with any enduring legend, there's a debate. Is La Llorona a genuine paranormal entity, or is there a more rational explanation? For paranormal believers and those who have had first-hand experiences, there is no question. She is a real tormented spirit, an echo of a terrible tragedy, cursed to repeat her suffering for eternity. The sheer volume and consistency of sightings over centuries, they argue, cannot be dismissed. For them, the cold spots, the disembodied wails, and the spectral apparitions are proof of a restless soul haunting our world. On the other hand, psychologists and skeptics offer alternative theories. They suggest that the legend could be a manifestation of mass hysteria, a powerful story that becomes so ingrained in a culture that people begin to project their fears onto ambiguous sounds and sights. The human brain is wired to find patterns, and the sound of wind rustling through trees or an animal crying in the distance could easily be misinterpreted as her infamous wail, especially if you've been raised on the story. Others point to phenomena like sleep paralysis, where a person wakes up unable to move and often hallucinates a menacing figure in the room, a figure that could easily take the form of La Llorona in a culture where she is a prominent figure. It could also be seen as a cultural memory, a story that encapsulates the historical traumas of conquest and betrayal, passed down through generations not as a ghost story, but as a metaphor for profound societal pain. But whether she is a tortured spirit, a psychological phenomenon, or a powerful cultural symbol, one thing is certain: the legend of La Llorona is as alive today as it ever was. She remains a chilling reminder of the darkness that can spring from a broken heart and the eternal power of a mother's grief. Her story taps into our deepest fears, the fear of the dark, the fear of loss, and the fear of what lurks just beyond our sight near the water's edge. So the next time you find yourself near a quiet river late at night and the moon is casting long, dancing shadows on the water, listen closely. If you hear the faint sound of a woman crying, a mournful wail that seems to float on the breeze and sends a shiver down your spine, will you dare to look outside? Or will you lock your doors, cover your ears, and pray she doesn't mistake you for one of her own? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into one of the world's most terrifying legends. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark side of folklore, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next spooky exploration. Stay safe and stay curious.